That's super.
Let's not say we did, Mama.
You see this up here, you're live. So
We're live right now?
Did you
want
you are live? Yes, you are live.
Oh, congratulations.
Hello.
We're down in New Jersey. Cool.
Thanks for
You wanna
that.
come up here?
That's awesome.
Up there?
Yeah.
So welcome this evening, February 22nd, 2023. Our meeting, the Community Relations and Human Rights Commission of the City of Oneonta. I'm Shannon Q. I'm calling to order our meeting at 7:04 p.m. First is a roll call. So Commissioner Jocelyn Klaus. Franklin Chambers is excused. Reverend Marty is excused. Commissioner Paul Conway.
Here.
So we have new additions. We will have someone new next month, and then we are waiting on our newest member, Commissioner Lynn Bailey. We can still have a meeting as long as we don't vote, but Lynn will make our quorum. She'll be enough to vote on things. But we can still have a meeting regardless, as long as we're not voting. So we're just waiting on Lynn. And then our council member, Katie.
Hello.
Okay. So this evening, we have visitors from the Hunger Coalition with Reverend Cynthia. Would you like to present? We're so excited to have you.
Oh, that's what Katie said. Stop laughing. He's my buddy that, so these are my buddies that I brought with me, cause they know me better than you do. So, John Ford and, from, well, you can introduce yourself when it's time, and Kim DeFalco. Are you taking the minutes, Katie?
I am.
Oh, you are, okay. Well, she has her laptop out, so it's, you know,
Oh, yeah,
you take notes.
I take notes.
There you go.
Jim, what's your last name?
No, John.
John.
Ford.
KORB.
K-O-R-D.
We can talk after.
And then Kim.
It's a small town.
Falco, D-E-F-A-L-C-O.
Capital F.
Doesn't matter.
Thank you.
Okay, Steve.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you for inviting us, and it's good to be here. I would like to make a couple of comments about your previous minutes. The minutes were sent to me by Marty because I said, what do they want us to talk about? So she said, well, I'll send you the minutes and you can read that part. Okay, so Paul brought up, this is number 6 on your last minutes.
Okay.
Paul brought up the issue of homelessness and suggested it be on your agenda. Katie, misspelled, it wondered if St. Mary's School could be used as a warming station. I've had that good idea too. Several people have had that good idea too. You're not the only one. It's complicated. You may or may not know that Catholic properties are owned by the diocese.
Yes.
And so it gets complicated when you have to go out to the diocese,
Okay.
in any denomination, but particularly this one. Anyway, so I've talked to Chris Welch, I've talked to David Miscavige, his predecessor, and et cetera, about this idea. I don't think it's completely dead in the water, but it's complicated. And I agree with you that I personally think that that would be a great location for a number of reasons. One of the excuses is, one of the reasons is,
You can say it.
Okay.
I go to St. Mary's.
yeah, one of the reasons.
But I don't care about what you say.
Shh, you're live here.
I don't care.
But anyway, so, one of the issues is that other people use the building,
Right.
like the Boy Scouts and whatnot. However,
Okay.
we're at the Red Door Church, we have many other people using the building, most churches have other groups using the building, things can be sorted,
Okay.
but don't give up on it.
Okay.
First Presbyterian next door, is willing to host the warming station again next season, but as you may know, they can only have 10 beds. I was on the, I still feel like I am part of the collaboration of Caring for the Homeless Population Collaborative, rather, and I headed the funding committee to fund the first season and raise the money for that. but then my life got busy and I had to step back, so I haven't been as active since, but I've been keeping tabs on it. And, 189 Chestnut only had 7 beds, they have 10 over here. That one, you can see outside, this one, you can't, a variety of reasons, but First Pres is willing to host it if need be, but, a larger space would be much appreciated, not only by the warming station staff and people that use it, but also by, Catholic Charities and, that help run it, and other organizations that do that. You've probably heard this before. I did, the next line is, Mayor in the minutes, Mary Drenick, I always mispronounce his name, sorry.
Training was right.
Drenick, okay, reported that the current warming station at First Presbyterian Church isn't being used for sleeping, but people are coming for food. That is totally untrue. That is not a true statement, and that should be corrected in your minutes tonight.
Okay.
Well, if he said it,
Pardon?
if he said it, we're not gonna correct what he said.
No,
He's,
but
We'll put
well,
it
that will
on.
be refuted in the minutes by your comments.
believe me, I hear you.
Okay,
So, well,
all right. Well, I'm sorry he's not here tonight, because if he is under that misunderstanding, I would be happy to correct him to his face. But I wanna make sure that you note it in the minutes, and that you all know that that's not true. That in fact, I spoke to Jennifer Reynolds, who's the Catholic Charities Program Director now. She is the one, they have a couple of program directors, they have so many programs over there. They have different people in charge of different things. And so, Jennifer Reynolds is the current Catholic Charities Program Director in charge of the current warming station. It's true that when the Lord's Table closed for about 3 weeks in the fall, the people coming to the warming station were hungry,
right.
because they hadn't been to the Lord's Table to get their dinner before they came over to sleep for the night. And even when they were on 189, the nature of being homeless is often you're always on the move, and so you may not stay all night. So the idea of sleeping all night is not necessarily a concept that is common among the homeless, as it might be for us, that have a steady place and bed to sleep in. At any rate, there were additional people coming during that period of time just for food, because the Lord's Table was closed. And so, after, 5 o'clock, 4:30, 5 o'clock, when everything else is closed and you can't afford to go to a restaurant, you go to wherever's open to see if you can get a bite to eat, or something to eat. So I think that's why there was an increase in the people who were going. But now that the Lord's Table is open on a more regular basis, those numbers have decreased again, and it's more like the regular thing. So one of the things that you might want to know, or the commission, or the Community Wellness Committee, I'm not sure who they're under.
I'm a member of that.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay, so, but maybe the Community Wellness Committee needs to think about some of the things we're talking about tonight. Like, if in fact people have gotten used to being able to get a full meal, one meal each day, 7 days a week, which is unusual, by the way. I mean, not all communities offer this sort of service. But because we do in Oneonta, and it's well known, and it's been well established for many years, when there is some kind of glitch, like COVID,
Right.
like the two people that run the Lord's Table getting sick at the same time, which is a rule in most of our families. If we're a two adult family, we try not to get sick at the same time. But I mean, I'm a one person family, but still, so that may be one of the things to look at, is if there's a glitch, what's our emergency measure? When that happened, I got called by Christy Hoyk, and we did some brainstorming, and she had also been talking to Patricia over at Leonard at Family Service Association, and then I called the Salvation Army pastor at the time, and she, so it was Christy and who's her name again? The former pastor at Salvation Army. Anyway, it'll come to us after we leave. So, the three of us put together a plan, basically, because I knew Salvation Army had extras, that they could pull something together from their Meal with a Message on Sundays. So anyway, so we did, and between the three of them, then I got out of the middle and let the three
Yeah.
service people.
We made sandwiches at
Yeah.
family services,
Yeah.
and then we gave out Subway gift cards, so people could get food one way or the other.
But that's not a good solution. I
It's
mean, there
temporary.
should be an emergency plan in place if there's something that happens to the Lord's Table, or Meal with a Message of Salvation Army, or a Saturday's Bread. The warming station is not licensed to provide food. Jennifer Reynolds wanted to make sure that, you all know that.
How do we go about getting such a license?
I don't know, that's a New York State thing, isn't it?
It's like
Yeah.
a serve safe.
Yeah, don't you have to be certified to do, do you know, how do you get certified?
Serve safe.
Say it again?
Serve safe. We
Serve
were
Yeah.
just
safe.
talking about our
Right.
meeting,
Right.
about getting that as a training,
Yeah,
and to be certified.
but, and we do the summer food program at the Red Door Church, but, that's a Catholic Charities thing, so Catholic Charities takes care of all that licensing and everything, so part of that point is use the resources that we already have in town. Don't try to reinvent the wheel, because there's already stuff out there. The question is, who do you need to talk to help make something happen, right? So there are not as many people arriving hungry at the warming station now, so that was a misunderstanding. The next part of your minutes, the mayor is in conversation with DSS, Catholic Charities, community wellness, both colleges, and then community wellness about wraparound services for people in need. And the wraparound services for people in need, is that actually the community wellness committee that's dealing with that?
I don't think so.
Well, it should be on somebody's plate,
Okay.
and I mean, I don't know very much about city government. I know you all serve and you're volunteers, and I'm grateful that you're here on the rest of our behalf. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
But, it seems to me that the community wellness or someplace ought to be dealing with that. It just, the title of that committee just sounds like it would be the right place, but it may not be, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember the mayor's comments. As far as I know, he has not involved anyone else in city government in those conversations. The Community Wellness Committee does host conversations with, some of our community organizations to better understand
Mhm.
where gaps are, basically.
Right,
Yeah, but as far as like sharing that responsibility with community wellness, that has not happened yet, so.
right. So who talks to the groups in the community?
The community wellness committee does do
Oh,
that.
does, yeah.
Yeah, and I think.
But what hasn't been shared with you then,
Just the mayor's plan for
or thoughts on it, yeah?
thoughts on wraparound services,
Moving
really what he
forward.
was talking about at our last meeting.
Well, that's something I would definitely star in your minutes.
Okay.
I mean, that jumped out at me, that to have some group like the Community Wellness Committee deal with that wraparound services makes a heck of a lot of sense to me anyway, just walking in off the street. And, but how you do that and what that looks like will be something to explore. The Caring for the Homeless Population is the minutes, has been working at this for at least 3 years, that's true. I got involved in 2018, and it had already been working for a while before that. Anyway, the mayor and Paul Conway had both been active, discussion ensued, okay. Then the next part of the minutes, how can we as a commission support food distribution to those in need? To me, I don't know why that comes under community relations and human rights and not under community wellness, but that's up to you to decide.
Well, yeah, so I will say, and I'll let the commission speak on why we think that's important here, but, community wellness is trying to tackle issues sort of one at a time, and food insecurity is on our list.
Right, sure.
Our
Sure.
hefty list,
Yeah.
So that actually I think is gonna be our next, community conversation is about food insecurity in our community,
Right,
yeah.
okay. Okay, well, at any rate, I think that, I'm not sure why this commission is doing it as opposed to the community wellness group,
So
but,
the Community Wellness Commission has not been around long enough, like as long as this commission. And,
Right.
and so we saw broader things.
yeah,
And so now that we have more of these other groups and committees popping up, they're taking on more of these dynamics. So,
sure,
but this is definitely something that was under our umbrella at one point, and now kind of it's going over to the community wellness.
great, so you can share whatever you have done in the past with them and say, here you go.
Yeah,
Or
so
however you're doing it.
we
right?
talked about at community wellness that a lot of these issues overlap, right?
Yeah.
A well community is a just community and an equitable community, and so
Sure,
a lot, like Shannon was saying, a lot of the work does overlap, and so we were trying to figure out how we can work together rather than separately on
Absolutely.
similar issues.
right,
Yeah.
right. Okay, but that popped out at me as to, who's, the next part of your minute says sponsor a food drive, question mark?
Yes.
No, don't do that.
Okay.
Well, we were talking about
And
maybe getting like broader, like food donation, like like the big trucks that come in and bring food. Like we were trying to figure out ways that we could have that same impact, because as somebody who's supported the food bank and Lord's Table and like brought food, you know what I'm saying, like there were periods where there was full shelves and then nothing. There's just not
Right.
enough, right? So we were kind of thinking about how can we make it so that access is easier.
Okay, the reason why I'm saying don't do a food drive is because most people are not doing what you're doing. Most people, when you do a food drive, clean out their cupboards and give you whatever they don't want.
And some of it's expired.
Yes,
And
that's
a
right.
lot, a lot of it is expired.
Right. I guess more so we were thinking about like how we've seen the trucks come in, like how do we find access to a
Right.
larger supply of food?
Okay, but don't call it a food drive, because then you're gonna have everybody clean out their cupboards and give you food you can't use.
Okay.
So nix the food drive, but yes to how do we get food that is needed. Does that make sense? Okay, I'm, okay,
We're already utilizing the big deliveries.
yeah,
Mhm.
but
They come in,
we'll get to
stuff like-
that in a sec. okay?
Yeah, because that's really important to like because that I'm thinking that's really the only way.
No, there are other ways, but hold that thought.
Okay.
Okay, but in terms of your minutes, the food drive was discussed and we recommended don't do that.
Do you have minutes from last time? I got something.
I'll send these to you in the fall. I have it all typed up, what I'm saying, I'll send them to you.
Oh, good, okay, that makes it easy.
And between what I have here and what Katie's typing and everybody else is writing down, you'll get your minutes.
Wow, it's easy.
I know, yeah. We do this with NAACP as well. I send him my notes and help him with his minutes. Anyway, okay, so the next part of your minutes is some of the area schools already hand out food. I don't know what you had in mind with that, but there are three main ways that, or four, anyway, they go on. The main way that the schools do the food is the backpack programs, which you may be familiar with. The other is a food pantry. Some schools have a food pantry in-house, which is what, in our terminology as the Hunger Coalition, is a private food pantry, because it's not open to the public. It's open to that school community. It's up to the school whether or not it's open just to the kids and staff, to the, administration as well, whatever. So, that is an area of our Hunger Coalition network list that we need to work on and update. But it's tough to get the information from the schools, partly because there's a lot of turnover, especially with COVID, in terms of who's in charge of what. And, guidance counselors come and go, or principals or whatever. So that's an area that we're hoping to beef up on our network list. So the other thing is the summer food program. Some of the schools have a summer food program in our community in Oneonta. It's run by the Catholic Charities, and our church have partnered to do that. But we do not have the number of kids coming that we had hoped or thought when it started. I mean, we're feeding almost more adults than kids at this point. which is not bad, because the adults also need to be fed, but it's not doing what it initially was set up to do. We've been doing it for 8 years. So this year will be our 9th year. At any rate, and then the other thing is some of the schools have gardens, which is problematic because school's off in the summer. But they have gardens anyway. Good for them. That's good. But that's probably the weakest part of that link. But the schools do, quote, hand out food, is what your minutes said. And there may be other ways that they do it. I would recommend that you all let Paul, or whoever, I mean, if I want to send you the minutes, I can send you our network list, which is now 16 pages long, and it has a list of all the food pantries. Because we're the Otsego County Hunger Coalition for Otsego County, it is everybody in the county, but that doesn't mean that somebody else in the county might also have some answers for you as to how do you think the best way to do this is. So we have 21 food pantries now in our county. These are public food pantries, not, quote, private ones. Fox Hospital has a private food pantry. Hartwick and Suco also have what we call private food pantries for their, community. And Hartwick's really just gotten going, actually with the help of one of our Helping Hands food pantry out on 205. Anyway, we've got 12 year-round meal sites. Some of those include the senior meal sites. The Office for the Aging is a friend when it comes to food. There are 11 seasonal community meals. One of them, ours is not functioning right now, the dollar dinner, which we only do once a year, usually at the end of January, a week before the Super Bowl, when there weren't any football games going on. But it was a big success, but and we would charge $1, and if people didn't have $1, that's fine, just come in. But part of the dollar thing is to give them some dignity. If you're paying for it, it's not just those people that are getting a free meal. Because we have people with lots of money that came to those for the socializing, and we had somebody playing piano, and the people that came from the Ark House, they loved it because they never get to go to free concerts, or at least that's what they said. But you have to watch them at the dessert because some of them have diabetes and they're supposed to. But anyway, there are lots of fun stories about feeding folks too. This gentleman over here, John, does the Thanksgiving dinner. That's one of the 11.
That's why your name sounds familiar.
That's why.
I text you every November and say, hi, I'm gonna volunteer.
Excellent.
That's my wife.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's the one that does the volunteers, but he
Okay.
does the overall coordinating.
Gotcha.
And the summer food programs are also on that seasonal list. And again, we do not have all of them in the county, but we have ours in the city anyway. We've got 17 backpack programs listed. One of them is regional, which runs that, but not all the backpack programs are regional. Regional, when I say regional, we're talking about the regional food bank in Latham. The regional, okay, so regional means regional food bank in Latham, and you can talk further about that a little bit, well, between you. But, and they have mass distribution. That's run by somebody in Edmonston called Maggie Johnson.
Okay.
And but that's another, she's on the list, and I recommend that you glean whatever you can from this. But know that the backpack programs are outdated because they've changed personnel in so many of the schools. We're not really sure who's in charge. We're hoping to update that this year. We've got 14 different gleaning groups, where they glean food for various things. They include the student gardens and the community garden. Carrie Harrington, helps run that for the city. We've got the farmers markets listed. We have a whole section on housing and homelessness now.
Wow.
And so again, the Community Community Wellness Group, they used to, many, many years ago, before I got here in 2008, they used to have a housing group that used to meet, of everybody involved with housing. and they would just get together and talk about their issues about housing. I think it's more important now than it probably was then, quite frankly. And, so these folks are all people that deal with, I mean, the warming station is part of that, for example, the Crossroads Inn in, it's an close to Otigo. Habitat for Humanity deals with housing. So all those contact folks are part of this. OFO, their emergency housing people, and DSS and whatnot. A bunch of faith communities that are interested in hunger are listed. Additional groups, we have 41 additional groups on the list. Job Corps is one of them, because they're interested in feeding people. Not only their own students, but their students are interested in helping other people get fed too, and are a great resource for volunteers and other things. So Family Service Association, Fidelis, which are terrific partners when it comes to feeding people. Friends for Recovery, I mean 41 different human service agencies that are interested in also hunger issues. Literacy volunteers, for example, is a part of that. Yes.
Do you have any information on the United Way when they would do that
Yes.
mass food? Okay.
Okay, when they do what?
The mass food drive, because we used to help with that all the time.
Okay,
and
but
then
they're not doing it anymore.
They're not doing it.
No.
Okay.
The United Way in Oneonta went defunct. It is now, yeah,
It's on Shenango County.
don't be too sad.
It's she's covering several counties.
No, the United Way is, like many of us, has diminished in,
And that's what it seemed
in
like
many
was
different
happening.
ways.
Yeah.
it was not viable to do a Otsego County or Otsego Delaware, whatever, and it just wasn't working. And so, and they went through a couple of different executive directors.
Yeah.
So, what has happened now is a realignment of sorts, and it's Shenango, Otsego, and is it Delaware or Schoharie?
I think
Anyway,
it's
but now they're actually growing, they're also gonna include, what's the one for Mohawk Valley? They're not being called the Mohawk Valley. Shoot, it's a United Way MMY, Mohawk something something.
Madison?
Madison, maybe,
Yeah,
let's go with
It's
that.
not far.
There you go.
Madison's right up there.
Yeah, it might be in Madison, right.
Madison. That's that's like north of here.
So the director of the Shenango United Way is Elizabeth Monaco, and she is a pistol. I mean, she is just so with it. And so she's on page 13 when you get this. And her sidekick, Victoria Mitchell, who's the director of business operations, they are really terrific, and she has a vision. She's also starting the Community Organizations Active in Disasters, COAD. Have you heard of that? That would be another, whoever's the emergency person for the city should definitely be involved in COAD. And Elizabeth Monaco is also heading that up. And we're just getting started. We're so far behind in terms of if the grid went down in the city of Oneonta or our area or several counties, what are you gonna do without your cell phone once it goes dead? Or actually it won't even work if the cell phone towers go dead, you know, I mean, what do you do in a disaster? So it's community organizations active in disasters, it's basically nonprofits. And, but to answer your question, United Way is reforming, and I think it's gonna be better because Elizabeth knows how to run these things. And she does. She's the one that brought in the military for 2 summers in a row to give free health care out of the Norwich School. And I tried my darndest to help get buses and transportation from Oneonta and Otsego County to get over there. We didn't get as many people as we'd like, but it was free health care from the military. And she helped spearheaded that with her sidekick Victoria. So that was very cool. All right, so anyway, and then we have 25 community members that like to be active in hunger issues, and we have resources on here and some websites, and our foundations that have helped us and other people that have helped us, and our board of directors. So that's the list. It's a very good resource. It's something that our church, the Red Door Church First United Presbyterian, does as a community service for the county. Do I send it to I have Paul's email, well, I now have Jocelyn's too, but since you just gave it to me.
You can send it to Paul. Paul, can you send us the list when you get it?
That
Yes.
big list?
Yes.
Yeah, I'll make a copy
Thank
for
you.
both of you, yeah.
Yeah, well, send to the whole, send to the whole
Makes sense.
commission, because I think Frank was on the list, but I don't, Franklin, but I don't think he is, was he at Hartwick?
Yeah.
Suko.
I mean, Suko, was he at Suko? Yeah, but he's
He's
not there
leaving.
now.
He's not
Yeah,
there.
I haven't gotten to make that announcement yet.
Oh, sorry, well, anyway, but he was on the list because of his position
Yes.
at Suko. Sorry, I can never remember, I can't always remember.
He was
his
at
position.
Suko.
Yeah, it was Suko, okay. All right, at any rate, that's kind of who we are. The things that I think would be helpful to address would be, what are you trying to address? What is the need? I mean, to really focus in on what that is, to be clear about, Maggie used the word whole, but I prefer your word, Katie, the gap. What gap are you trying to fill? The homeless, quick story, homeless, 3 people, I think it was, I'm not sure, it was a man and 2 women, or 2 women and a man. Anyway, they came to the church. The church secretary's there by herself most of the time, because I work out of my house, and they knocked on one of the doors near the office, the one that is locked, facing Main Street, and they wanted something, but because there were 3 of them, she just didn't open the door wide, thankfully. We're trying to get her to be not quite so trusting, concerned for her safety. But at any rate, they wanted a COVID test kit. And then, so she gave them one from our basket for the taking table. And then she decided to kind of follow them, where are they going? And she found them at the other door, getting water filling their water bottles out of our spigot, our outdoor spigot, which had not been turned off in the winter, which was probably good. But anyway, she was filling her. And then they came back again to the door that they had originally been to, because they noticed that there was an outdoor outlet, and they were charging their cell phones. And she shooed them away and said, by the way, did you know churches are private property? Could you go do that somewhere else? And we talked about it after this incident, and I said, well, let's bring it to the session, our governing body, to decide, do we want to shoo people away or not? You know, where else are they, in the city, where else are they gonna get water? Where else are they gonna get electricity in a safe place? So those are 2 things I hope your wellness committee will write down. Not all this is written down, Paul, so you have to take a few notes. Anyway, but where are they gonna get water? Where are they gonna get electricity for their cell phones? And people say, well, how can they be homeless when they have a cell phone? Wait,
You can get
you
safely.
need a cell phone.
You can get phones for free if you have certain conditions and certain income levels. So they can get them that way.
Right. So another thing is that we had a duffel bag and a tote bag stuffed in between our air conditioner and ladder outside the door. This happened in January. And so Carol, church secretary, called me, wanted to know, what do I do with this? Well, don't touch it. If it's there, call the police. So the police don't normally come to these things, but they came to this. And the police officer opened it up, and there was a laptop, and there were small scales, and you know what that was for measuring drugs and stuff, and other paraphernalia. And he said, well, normally, and there was a tote bag, which I think was a Catholic Charities or one of yours or something, anyway, with some gym shoes or something. Anyway, so the person obviously thought it would be safe until he could come and retrieve it. And normally, he said, we get about 12 of these a day, and we tell everybody, throw them in the trash. Just don't even look at it, just throw it in the trash. In this case, he did happen to come. I mean, usually they don't respond. I guess they responded because it was a church and not a private residence. And, I happen to recognize who this belongs to. I will return it to him. I don't know if he did it with a warrant or not, but anyway, the police officer returned it to him, or said he was going to. We were very grateful that he came. Thank you, Oneonta Police Department. But it begs the question whether, or not, I'm guessing that there are a lot of people who are, and they're more homeless than we realize. And I'm guessing there are a lot of people who don't have a safe place to put their stuff. And so they stash it in somebody's bushes or behind somebody's garage or something.
We had that this morning, somebody came
There
back
you go.
looking for a bag. It must have been there for the weekend, I think Patricia threw it away.
Because that's what the police are telling us to do.
Yeah.
But is there a safe, protected place to have lockers for people that don't have any place else to keep their stuff? I mean, if you're homeless and you have to carry everything on your back,
Yeah.
in your arms, in your pockets,
That
you know-
sounds like a great suggestion, we've gotta find a place.
well, I don't know if you have to find a place or not, you need to put it on your list to talk about.
Yeah, I there's other cities who've done a locker there. We should
That's a great
definitely
idea.
utilize
Well,
there.
But at any rate, somebody, are you writing it down, Paul? You're
That
taking
I'm writing
notes?
down, yes.
Okay.
Because most of the people come to
Good
me.
ideas I write down, Cynthia.
Okay, good. So
A
how
lot
many
of
have you
people
got?
come to
One?
me for family services that ask for hygiene products, or they get clothes or something.
Have you ever? Has the Armory ever been brought up to utilize as the warming station?
Say
Yeah,
again?
we've talked about it,
Okay.
The Armory?
yes.
Yes.
Many
Oh, yeah,
years.
they looked at it already,
Yeah.
but for some reason it was refused, do you
I
remember
think they
why?
said something about people being able to go too far into the other places in there.
Yeah.
And it would be too hard to control people or something. I don't remember, it was quite a while ago.
Because the teen center's down there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's some rec uses
Yeah.
for that too, so.
But why can't you cordon sections off? I don't
Oh, I
understand
don't know.
that.
I think it's
Yeah.
hard not-
Be the same.
Right.
Well, we started with this.
Yeah,
That's a big.
well,
So
no,
actually-
it would be the same with St. Mary's, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, ideally, you wanna have a washer and dryer for the staff to do the sheets every night.
Mhm.
You wanna be able to have a shower. The only free shower I know of is for new,
YMCA.
or the one, yeah, but the YMCA, there are certain hours and, well, it's a
Well,
for new too, I guess, you have to
They
make
like
an
to get a
appointment.
letterhead, a
Yeah.
letter from us, and they'll let them go get a shower.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, but if you're homeless and you wanna be out of the system, and you don't wanna hassle just to take a shower, I have to go all the way down, I have to walk, if I'm homeless, I probably don't have a car, I may or may not have a car. I have to walk all the way down to Family Service Association, when they're
Oh my gosh,
open,
yeah.
get a letterhead, something on a letter
And
saying,
walk all the way back to the
oh
car.
gosh, he really smells you, I'm gonna do this one. You know, I mean,
We
that,
let them ask, we don't.
no, but you understand what I'm saying, I mean, we have people come to church that
Yeah.
have obviously have not showered for a while. And it, so,
Yeah.
you know,
So-
they, I mean, there's certain ideal things that would be good for a warming station, but
Yeah,
we're here
that's a
about
good
hunger,
point.
so.
I was gonna say,
Just thinking
Yeah.
about day in the life, right? Like what
Yeah,
are the
right,
things
exactly.
that you're trying to
Exactly.
get met? What are the needs that you're trying to get
Yeah.
met? If you don't have anything, you know, to be able to.
And a lot of us get,
Accomplish
you know, the churches get hit up all the time, and you have to, and I'm suspicious now, because I used to live next to the church, and I bought my own house now, so I moved there, but it's hard to answer all those questions,
Yeah.
you know.
So one thing I did want to say, because you mentioned the Armory, and even when you're talking about a safe space to get water and plug in your phone, and I'm absolutely not making any promises on behalf of the city, but one of the things that was brought up at the meeting, we just had a meeting today, this afternoon, about children's mental health. And one of the suggestions that was brought up by Will Rivera from OFO was that we don't have a community center.
Right.
And so that's something that there was a lot of interest in that, you know, in trying to figure out maybe a way to make that happen. So, and the Armory was mentioned as a potential site for that.
Right.
That is like the tiniest baby of an idea, like not even, barely a heartbeat at this point, but, yeah,
people
so
have been
that
talking
could be
about-
something,
yeah.
and I just wanted to sort of float it by the room, because, you know, a lot of the things that you're talking about, being able to have lockers or whatever, that is something that theoretically could be integrated into a
And
facility
it's
like that.
within walking distance.
Yeah, and it's right off a bus line, so even if you,
And it's
Exactly
close to
right.
Saturday's
That's right,
bread
yeah.
and
yeah,
Lord's tables not too
Yeah.
far.
That's right, that's right.
The thing about the warming station is, there's only 10 beds over there, and the overflow has to be put up in a motel, which costs a lot more money.
yeah,
And it's been full. As far as I've heard, the warming station has been full, and they've been
Like-
putting people up. When we had the
Like
frigid
every
weather,
night.
they actually let people stay in there who weren't going to go to sleep, because it was so cold, frigid. And there weren't a lot of rooms available, because they filled up fast,
And that's the other thing, that we were getting dinged by, I mean, our DSS was getting dinged by the state, because we were using too much of our money for motels.
so if I can just, we got a letter, at council at the beginning of the month from Marcia Hogue, with the Lord's Table, and she spoke to that. She said, I'll just read the 2 paragraphs if that's okay. I'd like to provide you with numbers and dollar amounts that the homeless are costing St. James and the county. Currently, we're serving approximately 500 hot meals a week. We're also providing food at the food pantry. In December, we were visited by 282 households for food. St. James cannot continue to bear the extra cost of all these new people. DSS and Opportunities is bearing the cost of housing the homeless in local motels. That cost is $50 per night, $15.50 a month per room. They currently have 50 rooms rented and occupied. That amounts to $77,500 a month. Grand total for the year is $930,000.
Oh, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Wow.
And like,
Yeah.
with the
Huge
Armory,
need.
if
It's
you
unbelievable.
Can you give that to Paul to put in your minutes?
Sure, yeah. That-
Mark-
I'll just
Mark that
set
down,
exit.
Paul. You're gonna put those 2 paragraphs from Marcia in your minutes.
Okay, I'm gonna open it and I'll email you the
Good, good,
excerpt that I just read.
I've lived
That's
this
a lot of people. That's incredible.
Yeah.
I've lived in this community for a long time. I've been working at Family Services for 20-something years. When I first started working there, the homeless population that I saw were mostly single men, you know? Okay, it wasn't a lot that I got to see. But recently, we've noticed there's a lot of families with small children that are in the motels, and,
And that's why we wanted to talk about it. And
Yeah.
the security
What
at
happened?
that level,
yeah.
at that age, you know, has a real
Yeah, they're
impact on the
babies.
way that you grow up.
We have a lady we got a double stroller for recently because she's homeless and she's in the motel with 2 little ones. Yeah, so, yeah, we've noticed that change over the years, and we've noticed a lot more people. Maybe it's just my eyes, I can see better, and I can see the people, but there's a lot of new faces that are homeless. And we see them at Saturday's Bread, or we see them at Family Services.
And this, I'm sorry,
Go
this
ahead.
from a wide area we're talking about, not just Oneonta.
Yeah, but most of them are in Oneonta.
Really?
Yes, because they are put in the motels from, other places, yes, but now they're in Oneonta. But, I know we did a point in time count in January. And,
Explain what
Oh,
that
you
is.
did do that?
yes,
Okay.
Do
and
y'all know what that is, a point in time?
we counted the homeless. But the thing is,
Okay,
it was the worst day.
explain a little bit more about point in time. It's run by Will Rivera
Well, did it, yeah.
from OFO, and it's a federal point in time or a state?
Tell you, because I don't know.
But
That's
it's either
hard.
the state, anyway, and they decide on a day, it's kind of like the Christmas bird count, only it's for the homeless.
Right.
So it's a day when you're
Right.
supposed to count all the homeless, and there's criteria as to what makes a homeless, some of which you may not have realized.
Yeah.
Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, couch surfing, if you're at a friend's house, that's homeless.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of people stay in the warming station, that's homeless. People doubling up at the motel when they're not supposed to, when DSS is putting the bill, they're homeless. You'll find them, one lady told me she was sleeping on people's porches every night. And, that's where she lived. And, yeah, that
What was the stat from that last point in time?
point in time count, I don't know exactly the numbers, Will would know that, but for us at Family Services, I only saw 2 households. Now, that was the worst day weather-wise. It was cold and snowy, and we didn't get a lot of people in. We took count during the
They
week.
didn't get a lot of people going to Family Service
Right.
Association because it was such bad weather.
Right, so
But
there
that
was
doesn't
low.
mean they weren't out there.
No, that's right, because they weren't counted, because there's a lot of people who are not working with DSS. And a lot of people with the warming station are not working with DSS.
Therefore, they're not counted.
They're not counted. So if they didn't get counted at Lord's table,
Mhm. Do you want to speak to that, too?
Well,
someplace else, so when our normal, like January, we looked at our numbers for each day, about a third of the people that were coming in were homeless. So we're talking like 10, 15 people coming in to use our services were homeless each day. And it was like, they're not getting counted. Somehow they're being missed.
So
They
that's
wanna
why.
stay under the radar.
Yeah,
Well, a lot of them wanna stay under the radar because if you're familiar with our Opportunity House, which is our homeless shelter, which is different than a warming station. The homeless shelter that OFO runs, the way they were able to open it up is if the city made certain rules, and you may be familiar with them, but so one was like you have to have an eviction notice. Well, if you've been homeless for more than a little bit, or you weren't, you know, you were couch surfing or whatever for a while, you don't have an eviction notice, you know, and you have to have proof of
that's
residency.
DSS wants the eviction notice.
Yeah,
And then you generally have to go through channels before you can get into there. You have to go through DSS, I believe, and work with them, and you get to a motel first, probably. And then if you pass your background check, they'll put you in there if they have room.
a lot of people don't wanna go through a background check for a variety of
Well,
reasons.
Some of them don't have good backgrounds.
Or
There's issues.
they don't trust it.
Mm-hmm.
They're afraid of something. I know the first time I was asked for a background check, I thought twice before saying yes to it. You know, I mean, the first time you encounter that,
I'm going to speak on a different note
good.
because I volunteer at the Lord's table. I volunteered for a long time through and everything reopened at both places, and I see a lot plus Thanksgiving. Here's some of my concerns. You run a food drive. Homeless people, for the most part, what are they going to do with canned goods?
I know, really, how you
They
know?
don't have can openers
That's something to
usually.
think about when we're talking about all this.
Well, if we're talking about unhoused populations, but like in my prior work to what my current work is, I worked with families who were in crisis, and so some of those families really would benefit from having those gaps filled.
Yeah.
I had families going from one food bank to another. When they made those punch cards, it was like hell for them because it could only go one, and then they'd have to go somewhere else, and it was a lot. I think that's kind of what we were meaning.
And I don't know if the commission knows, the Lord's table, Saturday's bread, I can only speak for those two. People that come in, we usually have a variety from generous donations from individuals, but mainly from the supermarkets or whatever. I'm from Kansas originally, so we call things different. But the grocery stores, Kim's laughing at me because she knows. They can pick those. Since I'm now newly and trying to sort through things, the operations person at Saturday's Bread, the mass food distribution, and I pick up things, one, that we can hand out that people may not normally get, because I've learned through Thanksgiving. The number one problem I have is we talk homeless. A concern I really have at Thanksgiving, and trust me, I've tried and asked, is getting people of different cultures, of color, and it drives me nuts. And I've talked to various people in different groups. How can we get these? Because I feel like we're missing them, and it really.
But you're missing them as volunteers to help, or you're missing them for
Food,
to deliver food?
to deliver food at Thanksgiving or even now. My one question is, not only parents, single parent families, people who are handicapped, that we don't know about that. Somehow we gotta give them food, and I feel like, in my own mind, we're missing these, some of them, I'm not saying all of them, I'm just saying some. I would love to know ways to get into them
To invite them to get a meal.
to invite, yes, thank you, to get a meal.
Well, there are like able-bodied support organizations here in Oneonta. I'm sure that you could connect with them. I
Center
can.
for Independent Living,
Huh?
the Center for Independent Living.
Yes.
Yeah, oh,
I'm
yeah.
sure that
They're on our list.
Okay.
I've hit a bunch for that, but that's my concern. I didn't know about Job Corps because I can say that the Lord's Table and Saturday's Bread, Kim, you can correct me since you're a board member there, need volunteers, especially in the summertime.
That is so interesting that you say that, because we had been trying to get a hold of the Lord's Table, because we went there twice a month, sometimes 3 times a month to help volunteer. Our students loved it. Of course, COVID, they weren't allowed to volunteer, but we're back in business and we're able to go out in the community. And I had wrote down, you said Marcia Ho, because of course we had,
Joyce
Yes.
Mason.
Yeah.
so we had Joyce, and then I tried to call the receptionist, and then Emily has tried to contact, and we haven't had much luck. So I'm glad that we have a name, and if there's a number on that list, then we'll
There is,
take it.
yeah.
Saturday's Bread is a little tricky because we did talk to Marty.
Yeah.
Yeah,
She
okay.
had mentioned that they needed people to drop off.
Well, we're gonna need people to work in
Okay.
Saturday's Bread. We make sandwiches, we make salads, we bag the stuff up, and then when people come in to go around, they can pick out what they want, but we need people at the stations to help.
What time is that usually?
It depends. It depends on who you are. I get there between 7:30 and 8. It's one
Okay.
of the first people. But generally people get there by 9 for volunteering.
So volunteers, you're the operations coordinator, which means do you deal with volunteers?
No, but I know
No.
the people that are.
Make
Not like
sure.
my wife, but,
Okay, so
Yeah.
if
or
Job
Kendra.
Corps, if Job Corps had people that were available on a Saturday morning, not to drive because they don't
Yeah.
have cars necessarily, but to do
Right.
something else, what are the things they would do if they arrived as early as you or 9 o'clock or what? Just give Jocelyn and the group an
Well,
idea.
eventually we're hoping to reopen as a hot meal site. People come
It's all
in,
delivered.
so there'd be people, bringing the food, serving the food from like a warming station. Maybe busing, we're trying to figure out if we can get rid of busing because we don't have any volunteers we're gonna have.
Because I mean, we essentially ran the kitchen at the Lord's Table. They would leave us the food, and we'd bus and serve and do all that.
We'd be happy, very happy to have
I mean,
volunteers.
mornings are tough for 16 to
I know.
24-year-olds.
Especially on a Saturday.
I mean, they're up at 5:30 a.m. doing stuff and accountability and things like that all week long. So, but I'm sure that it could essentially, like, if we're there 9:30, 10, and then we can do something.
Right.
The driving around and dropping off is
No.
problematic because
Right.
we have GSA vehicles, and then we're allowing our students to go to other people's. It
Yeah,
gets
that-
a little
It's
complicated.
complicated.
Well, it's definitely something you guys should connect about. I really want to thank you guys so much for being here. I think we should have you back again at some point.
Okay.
I think we should sit with this question about like what is our clearer idea about addressing the gaps and what that looks like as like a commission. If we could have you all back actually at some point.
And I think it would, yeah. Is it Shannon? I can't.
Yes, Shannon.
I thought there was another syllable there. My eyes aren't as good as I would like them to be. Anyway, I think if we're gonna do this, and there's some overlap with the Community Wellness Committee,
That would be key.
having,
Yeah.
having them, maybe sit in also might be a joint something.
Right.
So just a couple of things. I brought you here, these two, because they have a lot more to offer, and was there anything else you wanted to say?
I would say, for me, not as a representative, but of the various groups, is I feel like because of lack of knowing places that we're not serving as a food group, no matter what it is, or ways to get them there. If we have the knowledge,
So
I'm willing to figure out
if-
what.
Like
the
addressing underserved communities.
Yes.
Yeah, so if the community wellness and this commission can come up with gaps that you can fill, let you know. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay. Anything else?
I got on a side note, we're having a fundraiser and we were thinking about having job card volunteers come. You maybe contact Patricia Leonard at Family Services, 432-2870.
Okay, mine is, and then my final statement is
Patricia
not a commercial.
Leonard,
Huh?
My final statement is not a commercial.
2870. Sorry, we need volunteers.
I know. That's another
But it's a
issue.
fun one.
But that's another issue countywide, when I'm on the Community Foundation of Otsego County Initiatives Committee as well, and so many groups have talked about the need for volunteers. At any rate, okay, so the key points, what need is trying to be addressed? What are the holes that you're trying to fill? Use the programs and resources and people that are already in place, don't try to reinvent the wheel. Talk with the food pantries and the meal sites. I mean, I just run the list. I just coordinate, make sure that Carol, our church secretary, and myself, keep the list updated as best we can with other people. But, we're just a network. We help people connect, but talking to the people that are on the ground and actually doing the work. The food pantries and meal sites, other people from the list that you think ought to be invited to the table. We've done roundtables that have been very successful, 2 this past year with food pantries. One was partnering with the Community Foundation of Otsego County. Jeff Katz is the executive director, you may know of that. And then the other one was with Regional Food Bank of Otsego. Now, there are food pantries that are not part of the Regional Food Bank. Of the 21, there are probably 3 or 4 that are not part of regional because of that. Maggie Johnson, when you see that name on the list, she's the one that does the mass distribution and can answer your question, Sharon, about that. How do we get food? Feeding America is on here. That's another piece, and Maggie knows that piece as well. The SNAP program is something that needs to be attended to this year. The SNAP is, you know what SNAP is with the food pantries?
Yeah.
Okay. That comes up, it's part of the Farm Bill in the US Congress. It comes up every 5 years. Last round, the criteria were cut. Ron Rivetto would know all about that. Lisa Lent is now in that position at Catholic Charities. We really need to make sure the Congress does not cut, but hopefully increases, which is like, really, that's gonna
A
happen?
lot of people got used to the extra food stamps too during, for COVID.
Just for an example,
So it's getting cut this month.
That was brought up today too.
yeah, so a senior citizen during COVID had their benefits, their SNAP benefits increased to $281. Come next Wednesday, on March 1st, their SNAP benefit is going to be $23. So they're gonna be going from 281 to $23.
And that's just one person. When you get a family, that's, multiplied.
So the other thing is to, do we expect people to come to the services, or do we need to take them to them? One of the things I really admire about Saturday's Bread is that when COVID happened, they didn't just shut down, they figured out how to deliver and get volunteers and that sort of thing. And my part was to help raise money, to get money so they could buy gas cars to give to their volunteers. But at any rate, those are the main points, I think. Is there anything else you have of us? Any questions?
You've been very thorough. Like I said, I feel like we should have you back. Like I think we need to kind of sit with all this information, get that. I'm gonna get that from Paul, and then if you're okay, if the 3 of you wanna come back at some point.
I would go over the list and figure out who you want to have in the room. not just us, because we're just 3 people.
And I think it would be better, like Katie was saying, if we involve wellness committee and us, and we're gonna have, cause Katie had sent me an email suggesting that we collab anyway, the wellness committee and human rights, so I think that.
I think that would be wise. You've
Yeah.
got, yeah, I think that would be helpful for the city.
We really value you being here.
Now, I'm sorry if it felt like a fire hose.
That's no worries.
I feel like these conversations kind of always do, because the problem is really big and
Yeah.
kind of
Well, and we were
take
talking
it
a
all
lot
in,
about
it's like,
homeless,
okay.
and hunger is one of those issues.
Absolutely.
But, I mean, their health and well-being. I mean, how many bodies do you know how many bodies they found during the really cold snap this winter? Did they find anybody frozen in the snow?
Not that
That I heard of either.
Well, that's a plus for the city then.
Let me get that list.
No dead bodies.
Real
Yes.
quick.
Staying at the warming station.
So
Yeah.
we need to,
May I say something? At the same time, if you know of people or
I'll
groups
email
or
it to you.
pockets that we can help,
That's much better.
please let us know. I mean, like I said, I have this fear, but I've only lived in
You
a
have
town
fear of what? Say it again?
that we're not missing people. Somebody may know and we've never thought about to help. So I asked for that. And I've only lived in town 7 years.
City.
City, okay.
Whatever.
So first city, well,
He lives down the road from me. He lives in the city.
Thanks a lot for
So-
Thank
coming.
you so much for coming.
Okay,
You
thank you again for your service to.
yes, thank you very much.
Is
So-
it Pam, by the way?
Kim.
Kim.
Yes, Pam?
Kim
Yeah.
Gonzalo.
Okay.
so really quickly, Franklin has moved, everyone, so, he will no longer be part of the commission. He says that he will miss everyone and thinks, everyone for.
We wish him luck, that's for sure.
But we do have somebody who is taking his position at Suco who may be interested in that chair. So, and if not, we have 2 people in waiting for that chair. If not that. Thank you again. We don't need to approve minutes any longer. We opted out of doing that. I think what I really need is, are we good with our Trailblazer being the end of March again, like the end of March? Because I need to email Jeff about getting dates for Foothills, because we want to keep it Women's History Month. So are we good with the end of March?
Sounds fine to me.
Okay, because we can't vote on anything, we don't need to vote on that, so, okay. And then we will have 2 new members next meeting. And we can't really do much of all else right now. And then just a heads up, so I am putting my hat in to run for council. I'm running for 3rd Ward. So just giving everyone a heads up. I don't know how it will work. I don't know if I'll be removed from this commission or not if I do get the chair, but I am running.
Yeah, you would be removed, but you'd probably be made the liaison, so you could still continue to do your work. I can't,
Is that way,
promise that, but that's what.
is that way off in November?
It's off, but it's, so elections are in November. It wouldn't begin until next year.
January 1st.
So it would be hopeful that I can come back as your liaison. I don't know if that is the case, but I would love to do that if I get it. Who knows? But I just want to put it out there so everyone knows.
Good, good.
Can I ask a question about the Trailblazer?
Yes.
I am remembering hearing you say, but I could be totally making it up, that the reference portion of the Trailblazer is optional now? Or were you saying that the rolling thing is optional?
It used to be that we had a time frame they had to apply.
Okay.
The applying is now rolling.
Okay,
And
gotcha.
so, It is not optional.
Okay, so
We
maybe
There's
still have
related
two
to those two
required
things.
Yeah.
references.
Okay, so
Did you get the Trailblazer? We got some emails for Trailblazer.
Yes.
Okay, just making. Did
It's
you
just the
get
one,
that?
right? Just the one person.
What
So
nominee?
can we make sure that Jocelyn's on that list for the Trailblazer nominees?
And do we have a link again online?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, I'll just scour somebody's Facebook.
We just have the one so far, right?
Yes.
If you go to the city website, it's posted
Oh,
there.
that's it.
But so we'll push this to next meeting, and then hopefully next meeting we'll have a quorum.
Good, we better.
So I'm going to call an end to our meeting.
I already sent it to you.
It is 8:09.
Was it two?